everyone, and welcome to another horse racing hangout. My name is Anise Montpleasure, and it has been a while since we've had a live hangout. So I want to remind everybody that wherever you are watching this live, if you're watching it in real time, seeing it on Twitter or X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, you can comment and send in questions so that my guests and I can answer those live. So today's episode is going to be all about the Retired Racehorse Project. So we're also streaming live to their social media channels today too. If you're new to Amplify Horse Racing, we are a 501c3 nonprofit to get youth and young adults introduced to the thoroughbred industry. Whatever avenue that might be that they want to get involved in, whether it's educational opportunities, career opportunities, or in the case of today's topic, thoroughbred aftercare, we're here to connect you with those resources. Today's guest, Kirsten Green, is the Executive Director of the Retired Racehorse Project. She's going to tell us all about what is thoroughbred aftercare for those of you who are new to that subject. She'll explain the Retired Racehorse Project and the scope of all the opportunities they have. Many people might have heard of RRP, which is the acronym they go by, but they are generally most commonly thought of for the makeover, which Kirsten will also explain, the Thoroughbred Makeover project. And but they have a lot more resources than just that, which is really what I invited her on to share today. For anybody out there who is interested in other Amplify opportunities, I do want to make a couple announcements. Our podcast, co-hosted by myself and Caitlin Christofferson, is now available in video format. So starting a couple months ago, Caitlin and I started recording our episodes using StreamYard. So you guys can now go to our YouTube page and view the video format of those podcasts, which are really fun. You can see our guests. A lot of times we're broadcasting from fun places, which is really cool. And so those are all pre-recorded versus our Hangouts are live and interactive and engaging. So check those out. And with that, I am going to go ahead and welcome Kirsten to the stage. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've been so excited to have you on.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this ever since we started talking about it. Anise and I have been spending quite a lot of time together lately. We just saw each other at the RTIP symposium out in Arizona on a panel together. So we've been kind of working on this for a couple of weeks now, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, for anybody who has not heard of the RTIP Symposium, that's the Global Symposium on Racing that is hosted by the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program. And Kirsten was a big highlight, one of the speakers on the Success Stories panel. You guys definitely are a success story. I had the opportunity to moderate, so that was awesome. It was a great way to kickstart the conversation that we're going to be having today. And again, I want to remind everybody out there, ask questions, leave comments. We can go ahead and bring your questions right up on the screen as Kirsten and I are chatting, and she can address those live. So if you have any sort of questions about OTTBs, off-track thoroughbreds, or the retraining process, or the resources that you can access through the Retired Racehorse Project, please go ahead and ask those now. So Kirsten, before we get rolling with the RRP part of the conversation, I want to know a little bit more about you. I know this question, but not many other people know how you began your career with RRP, because you've actually been with them for quite some time.
Yeah, so I am based here in Central Maryland. I grew up right outside Washington, D.C., and now I'm kind of closer into Annapolis. And I grew up riding, at a lesson facility, predominantly thoroughbred lesson horses, a couple of quarter horses, at a dressage and eventing barn. My exposure to racing really at the time was just being able to watch the Triple Crown races on NBC, because that's kind of how you watched horses on TV. Like now we're a little bit more lucky in that everything is streamed and that you can, watch, now you can see like a bundled kind of highlight reel of Land Rover,
Yeah.
a week after the fact or something like that, which wasn't an option when I was a kid. So that was really kind of my exposure to horse racing was, I'll age myself here, but watching kind of like real quiet and silver charm and charismatic. I'm of that generation of kid. So I grew up and did the kind of traditional track that a lot of kids in the kind of equestrian industry do, where you do your working student and see if you want to be like a rider or a trainer. And it became pretty evident to me quickly that that was not the lifestyle that I wanted for myself. And I'm an okay rider, but I'm not a brilliant rider. And there's a lot more people out there that deserve that space. So after that, I kind of went around doing a lot of odd jobs, did the requisite waiting tables, doing retail, which we all know those are the types of jobs that really build your character.
I was going to say they're character building jobs that you learn things from that you apply in other ways throughout your entire life.
Yeah, absolutely. Like lots of transferable skills. And then for a couple of years, I ended up running a logistics, like doing import logistics for a handbag and like small leather good company. So we were the North American wholesaler for this brand that was based out of Italy. And that was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
I did not know that part of your career, actually.
that was the last job that I had before RRP. But I always kind of tried to maintain my involvement in the horse industry. Even though I kind of took a little bit of a break from riding after coming back from my working student, I just was living kind of out here in Anne Arundel County, where there's, in the southern part of the county, there's a decent amount of riding farms and everything. And I was kind of running in similar circles as Stuart Pittman. I was friends with people that worked for him and took lessons with him, and he actually taught at my barn where I grew up. He had a long-standing relationship with my barn owner through Maryland Horse Council. So I knew him a little bit. He surely didn't know me, but like I knew who he was.
Yeah.
And he started doing stuff with the Retired Racehorse Project in 2009. It was just an initial retraining of racehorses symposium. And then 2010, his friends and kind of founding board members convinced him that it should be a C3. So we got the nonprofit status. And I really got involved as a volunteer in earnest in about 2012 and decided that I wanted to get back into the horse industry, and that surely there was ways that I could be involved in the horse industry and not be, in a barn all the time. And so I just updated my resume and sent it to everybody that I knew in the horse industry. And Stuart had enough experience with me through my volunteerism at that point that he was like, well, I guess RRP could kind of use a full-time staff person, and went to the board and they voted and created a position. So I've been on payroll with RRP since July of 2014. So I'm coming up here on my 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
And have just been here the whole time. I very much, I kind of say I grew up with the organization. I worked in Stuart's basement for 2 years and then in his farmhouse for a couple of months, and then found us our first office, and just kind of have worked my way up and experienced the whole thing from the front row, and have learned so much working with other people along the way. And then we had Stuart, and then we had, he stepped back and is now the county executive of our county because he wanted to get back into politics. And we had Jen Reutz as our executive director for a couple of years, and I learned a ton working under her. And then when Jen was ready to step back and focus more on her farm, then we had a national hire that I participated in, and here we are. So.
What better person to bring into that role than somebody who's seen the whole, evolution from the, the very start of this organization to what it is now, which, you know, it's nationally recognized. You have a huge impact within the thoroughbred industry and the aftercare community. So that's really, really cool. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you and you know, the amount of work that it's taken to get to where you are. And, you know, I want to dive into actually talking about what RRP actually is, because it provides a lot of resources within the aftercare world. But I want you to first help us out by defining what is thoroughbred aftercare. You know, I know that's a very broad question, but if there's someone out there who is new to this and has never heard that term before, let us know, what does that mean in very basic terms?
Yeah, I mean, I think the term aftercare really came into our lexicon like in a serious way, probably about 10 years or so ago, with the formation of Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. Certainly, the need for aftercare has been increasing in our country for probably about 40 years or so now. And when you think of the kind of length of time that we've been racing in the United States versus the amount of time that we've needed an industry to transition horses, it's such a small percent of the time. And I think that says a lot about kind of the horse's place in history and how that's evolved over years. And certainly from the sport horse and how sport horse breeding and marketing has changed, particularly in the past generation or so. You know, a lot of us who are of a certain age or, you know, have family of a certain age that are horse people can tell us about some of the great thoroughbreds, particularly, you know, from the 70s and maybe a little bit earlier. And then we really saw the quarter horses and the warmbloods in particular kind of specialize in their marketing as sport horses, and starting to import more warm bloods and that sort of thing. And so the thoroughbred standing really got a bit diminished there for a while. And that has a lot to do with kind of why Stuart felt that something like this was necessary. But, you know, you had a period of time where you could go to racetracks and, you know, buy horses and load them right up on the trailer for couple $100. And some people still have the connections to do that, but increasingly it doesn't work out that way anymore. So what is aftercare? To us, we like to be inclusive about it. You know, I think the tough thing about the term aftercare is there's an inherent connotation of charity work associated with it, but I personally don't believe that it is limited to the work, the very valuable work of the 501c3 nonprofits that are involved. You know, it has turned into a little bit of an alphabet soup in terms of understanding who's involved and what their acronym is and what they do and what their place is. But I think really, truly, it's a very broad industry that is dedicated to this transitional period between when a horse is exiting the racing and breeding industry and is moving on to, you know, life as a sport or pleasure horse. And for us, that's, you know, the traditionally thought of nonprofit aftercare facilities, whether or not they're TAA accredited, that are taking on ownership during that transitional period. That can also include the listing agents, the Cantors, the Finger Lakes Finest, the track-based programs like Parks, Turning for Home, Karma, that are serving a particular track or region that's funded by horsemen's groups and breeders groups within that region. And there's the for-profit end of things too. And I think that sometimes resellers get a kind of icky connotation because aftercare has that charitable vibe to it, but it really, it's in the best interest of the horses to increase the value. Resellers, I think, are playing a big part in that too. So what is aftercare? I think that it's any entity or individual that is involved in contributing to the transition of a thoroughbred from racing to riding.
That was a very good definition for a big question. And, you know, I guess loosely speaking, I guess it's like a plan for caring for thoroughbreds after racing in whatever form that may be, whether it's permanent retirement or a second career, which thoroughbreds can do many of, and you guys have done a great job of showcasing that. And there's this whole spectrum of organizations and, you know, initiatives for facilitating that care and that transitional process. So that was a great way of explaining that. So now we're going to dive into, if I can find my prompt here, what is the Retired Racehorse Project?
Yeah. So, you know, I mentioned there's a lot of different entities that are involved in this industry at this point, which I think is just phenomenal for how the industry functions in North America. You know, what aftercare looks like from country to country can really look significantly different depending on the amount of oversight and involvement that the racing industry has, and that just really varies. In our country, of course, racing has many different jurisdictions and many different stakeholders involved, and like we are, you know, lacking a national body, which, you know, we're all talking a lot about these days. And aftercare is a little bit representative of that as well, because aftercare really doesn't have a governing body. I think where Retired Racehorse Project fits into that has become a little bit of a catch-all for what those who are kind of the boots on the ground doing the work with the horses in the barns, listing them, getting them networked out, that don't have the time or resources to really be dedicated to the bigger picture for, you know, the improvement and the advancement of the breed, and what goes into making people be interested in riding thoroughbreds, be successful with transitioning thoroughbreds and with thoroughbreds in general. So I think that's where RRP really comes in, where we're focusing on increasing demand for the breed, increasing value for the breed, and whatever life looks like beyond racing. So we're very education focused, have online educational library resources that people can look at, just to give them information that's vetted out, and you know, it's very easy to turn to Facebook and, you know, go into a group and say, like, I can't get my horse to gain weight. And the spectrum of things that you'll get about that is, you know, as diverse as the membership of the group. But it's always good to have a resource that has, you know, gone through and sifted through all of that information and gone to professionals and kind of distilled a lot of the information that's out there into something that is easy to reference and follow. And RRP's put a lot of time into developing that. The Thoroughbred Makeover is, you know, of course, kind of our signature flagship program. And that's really focused on the showcasing and the highlighting and advancing of the breed, showing people that, you know, these are a horseman's horse. Like, if you are good to them and invest in them, like, you're going to get that back tenfold. So we're proving that, you know, you can transition on a timeline if you want. That's not for everybody, and it's not for every horse, but, you know, the makeover sets some high standards of horsemanship and training, which are achievable. And we are there to support you, and the community is there to support people through that whole process. But it's a 10 discipline horse show. It's highly marketed, highly visible. So it's kind of increasing the awareness around the versatility and the trainability of the breed. So that's one of our areas of focus. And then other services that are specific to thoroughbred people. We have our horse listings that are exclusive for thoroughbreds. We do community outreach around the makeover, letting racing connections know that their horses are entered and how they can engage and follow throughout the process. And I think that there is a lot more that we can do on behalf of the breed to kind of increase its standing within the sport horse marketplace that we're going to be focusing on going forward. So sometimes when I really want to oversimplify it, we're the closest thing to a breed organization that the thoroughbred sport horse has.
Oh, I like that. That's a really good way, like a good analogy, or, you know, a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So I think that guides us. You know, when Stuart founded the organization, he did a lot of teaching himself, and made a name for himself on the backs of thoroughbreds, and he just wanted people to be better horsemen and better riders for thoroughbreds. It was very education focused, and I think we can see the fruits of that now. Just if you come to the Thoroughbred Makeover and you see, what people have been able to accomplish with a little bit of added support and backing over a relatively short period of time, it's really impressive. And it's totally doable. But yeah, I think, AQHA or any of the, the Warm Blood Breed Registry stud books, are out there marketing and advocating for those horses and, making you want to choose to ride those horses for whatever sport you specialize in. And we're chipping away at doing that for the thoroughbred.
So I was hoping to set you up to talk about the horse listings and all the educational resources, but I don't know about you, but I'm not seeing it on my page right now as I'm trying to screen share here. So we might need to redo that screen share.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm going to kick it from the studio. No. If you just unshare and then reshare that page again, we should be able to get that up and rolling, because I want Kirsten to actually be able to talk our viewers through, how to use the website. And I have to admit, even as, I'm very proud to sit on RRP's industry outreach committee. And I have to say, I've never done an in-depth dive of the website until today. And it is so rich with resources and something that we're going to, through Amplify, really push people to more frequently to learn more about taking on an off-the-track thoroughbred, because, you guys have created this incredible platform, and, we want to be able to keep amplifying that. Here we go. Yes, we're good. I can see it now. Hopefully you can see it too. So Kirsten is going to guide us through having a look at the website and go ahead and talk about some of the resources that viewers out there can find through the Retired Racehorse Project.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things that I wanted to focus on, we're talking about services that the RRP has to offer, and we actually recently relaunched our horse listings. This website itself is relatively new. We were ready for a complete overhaul, which we finished in the summer of 2022. And then it took us about another year to get to a point where we were ready to relaunch the horse listings. So they've been back out for about 6 months now. And that was something that was always key on in our original programming on our original website, was to be able to offer horse listings exclusively for thoroughbreds for free. So we're proud to say that that's back. So homepage just goes through like mission and impact and that sort of thing, but we're focused here on horse listings. So these are horses that, any entity can list with us, and there's always going to be a free option. And we do have a premium option, which offers options for like more pictures, longer narrative, more links. And then it also, if you're somebody that lists multiple horses with us, particularly if you're an aftercare organization or a reseller and you have multiple horses available at a time, it links your listings together so that people can see other horses from this seller, and then they can click through and see your other horses. So our horse listings accommodate both horses for sale or adoption as well as lease. So that's an option as well. And then you have, oh, that's a really cute picture there with the rainbow and everything. Anyway, sorry, I'm distracted. If you want to like waste some time, you can go and scroll through our horse listings and
window shop.
Cute horses.
Window shop. Yeah.
Yeah. The time of year. So these are going through, the premium people have paid to be, at the top of the list. But right now we've got over 130 horses that are actively listed. Wow. So you can scroll through and filter things down here based on color, gender, if they've been tagged as being having potential for a particular sport or background, that's available here. Age, price, height, And then I'll point out here, there's a couple of different categories. So the horse listing shouldn't be confused with the ASPCA Makeover Marketplace, which is specific to horses that are completing the current Thoroughbred Makeover class of competition. So I'll show you that, which is separate. The other tags that we have that we can filter out are horses that are Makeover Prospect or quote unquote RRP eligible, which is kind of colloquially how people will say horses are eligible for the Thoroughbred Makeover. So what that means is that horses that are eligible for 2024 will have had a race or published work on or after July 1, 2022. It's 18 months, allowing for rehab and that sort of thing. And they can't have had more than 15 rides between when they retired and when training opens on December 1st. So training just opened for 2024 on December 1st of this month. And we're heading into application season right now. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. There's also the new broodmare division, which has now been made permanent thanks to Claiborne Farm. And those horses have a slightly different eligibility criteria. They just need to have one lifetime work and one reported cover within the previous 2 breeding seasons. So not necessarily a live full report, but they need to have had a cover by a thoroughbred stallion reported to the Jockey Club. So 2 classes of competition that would be captured within that Thoroughbred Makeover prospect filter. And then the other one is Makeover Graduate. So that could be a Makeover Graduate from any of the past years of the Makeover beyond the current Makeover Marketplace horses. And then Open. So that's any Thoroughbred. So they have all the filters there. And then if you wanted to go and create your own listing, you would go into My Account. And you have a side menu here for My Horses. And you go to Create Listing. You just need to have a free account on our website to do this. So you have to put in a Jockey Club registered name. Any additional information, if they have like a USCF show name, USCF number, microchip number, tip number, you can add all of that. And then you're going to select your listing type. So this is where you get them into the correct category. We'll help you if that doesn't come through correctly. So here you have narrative, which is just, you know, to say this horse has gone these places, has done these things. This is what they would be most happy doing. You can tag them as being eligible or having experience in any of these backgrounds discipline-wise. We also like to do training status. So these are a few things that are really kind of unique to the off-track thoroughbreds, right? Like tell us roughly where they are in their transitional period. Like, are they immediately off the track? Are they at a point where they need some rehab time? Have they had 30, 60, 90 days? Have they been competing for several seasons? Just to kind of give people an insight as to, you know, based on my experience as a rider, I know that I'm going to be looking for horses that are kind of falling into this kind of experience level. Again, some things that we do that I think are really relevant for off-track thoroughbreds is, are there vettings on file? Were there previously known injuries on file? Are trials allowed? Again, trying to kind of like go through and hit on some of those things that horse shoppers know, like you're going to be getting asked all these types of things anyway. So you can go ahead and front load that information for you.
And this is still all through the free version?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome.
So if you were to pay to upgrade for a premium listing, you would get the option to add additional photos and additional URLs for information. Like if you have YouTube videos here, it would give you additional opportunity to add more links. And then the other thing is that we've done some work on the back end of our system to start putting together ties. for horses. It's kind of like the very basic fundamentals of traceability. So if horses are in our records database through the makeover or through classifieds, we try to link them up so that we can put together a bit of a trail. So the owner information will help us link together if horses have been bought, sold through the makeover, trying to start putting together a little bit of that story on traceability. And then if there's a primary contact other than the person making the listing, you can designate another agent or somebody else other than the person who has the listing account. So as far as horse listings go, there is the free option. If you wanted to just buy one premium listing, it's $3.99. If you wanted to buy a month of unlimited listings, it's $5.99. And then there's an annual subscription for unlimited, which is $57.99. And we also have discounts on that for TAA, TCA, and Right Horse partner organizations as well. So you can contact us if you're doing the listing for any of those organizations. We can give you a discount on that as well. So it's pretty straightforward, but it yields a listing that is very detailed, very user-friendly. If we go back to horse listings and open up any of these, here's a really great example. This horse won the show hunters at the makeover in 2021. Let me see, actually, it's going to open in another tab, so I should stop share and reshare, right, Anise?
Yes, I think that should work.
Okay, let's see here.
I'm definitely going to be perusing the horse listings later. Loosely looking for a potential polo pony that might still be in a 2 to 3 year plan, but I'm just, doing initial research, the window shopping phase.
Yeah. I've been on Anissa's case to do the polo division at the makeover for a year or two now. So this is a great example because he is a Thoroughbred Makeover graduate. So it's pulling in his makeover year because he was already previously in our system. So it says that he's a 2021 makeover grad. When you give us the jockey club name, we pull in all of the breeding information, the pedigree and the breeder. So here's where that narrative comes through. You've got several great full-size photos here. And that's her video that she had linked out as well. So here is some of that information that we went through. So seasoned riding competitive partner, established at rated recognized show records. So that again is just kind of helping you get a sense of how much training is in this horse. Available for trial. Is the price negotiable? Here's his makeover results. Again, because he was a Thoroughbred Makeover graduate, he's already in our database, so we're able to pull that information forward. And then we also, because you gave us the jockey club name, we pull in all of his race records, so you can review that as well. That can be really insightful for people, particularly as when you're shopping for horses that are kind of newly off the track. You can glean some insight from looking at their racing history, seeing, how long they were racing, if they had any big gaps that might be worth asking a question about. If you're really sophisticated and are good at reading a form, there are things that you can glean off of that will tell you a lot about what kind of athlete you might be getting on your plate and transitioning into another sport. So I think I'm really proud of them. Of course, I'm biased, but I really love our listings when it comes to, this kind of unique niche, thoroughbred specific, off-track thoroughbred marketplace.
This is awesome. Like, really well done to you guys for how thorough it is. And, if anyone out there has questions about reading a racing form and, wanting more information on that, we would be happy to share, further information through Amplify. Our last horse racing hangout was actually how to read past performances.
Yep.
So I'm glad that you brought that up, Kirsten, that there is some information that you can glean in that if you're asking questions of somebody about a horse that you're hoping to potentially get off the track or, has been in recently off the track in light training or in rehab, really informing yourself on what questions to ask. So yeah, great point.
One other thing that I wanted to add is a feature that we haven't promoted too heavily, but it's called a scholarship listing. So it has all of the options for premium listings, but it is a way for if you yourself are an owner or a connection of a horse that is retiring, that is makeover eligible, and you want to support that horse's transition and you would like to see that horse go to the makeover, the scholarship is inclusive of covering the fees at the makeover for that horse.
Wow.
So that way you're paying a couple $100s, but it gets paid into RRP and held in escrow at RRP. And then if the horse gets registered for the makeover, that is credited over to the person's account that has the horse. So a really good way to kind of harness the power of saying RRP eligible to sell a horse, which it really does help move horses. Everybody wants to know if horses are makeover eligible, but that's also a way to kind of facilitate your involvement in staying in touch and keeping tabs on your horses as well, because we'll put you in touch with the people that have the horse. And then I wanted to touch on, just because it loops in so well. We've been putting a lot of work into kind of reorganizing and tagging everything in our educational library. So we have everything tagged out into these different topics. And I know for sure, I'm not going to go trying to find it this second, but I know that there is an article in here about reading your horse's past performance when it comes to
showing. Awesome. Well done.
But this one is what I wanted to show you conveniently, horse listing pitfalls and how to avoid them. So this is really talking about how to take good confirmation photos in a way that is attractive and useful, particularly for sport horse buyers, because that's, who we're marketing to. So it runs through a lot of this, tells you about writing a good narrative, being inclusive and clear about the details and background. And then it gets into a really good kind of like do's and don'ts of confirmation photos, which those of you that have, worked in the sales industry, how important this piece is and how frustrating it is to get it just right, but it's also so important. So it goes through and has several, lighting, stance, very clear examples of, too far forward, stood up straight, like photo angle and placement, everything along those lines to like really get it right. I mean, how many times have we seen this picture where it's like, okay, yes, it shows the whole horse, but is not necessarily the best representative of what that horse actually looks like, because somebody just like threw up their cell phone and just snapped a picture. We can do better than that and get a better result.
It really makes all the difference. Like, as a potential, as a window shopper here, I can say that, having a good photo, even if it's just properly setting your horse up for the photo, can make somebody pause and take a second look versus quickly scrolling on to the next one.
Yep, for sure. Like, how many times have we seen like a solid, like, showstopper image? This is another one that we see is like the wet or sweaty horse, and it's like, or just after the bath, right? So just a lot of really good information there. And our educational library is really truly comprehensive, covering training issues, farrier footwork, feet issues, wellness stuff, the infamous questions about like, my horse has ulcers, like, managing that sort of thing, the nutrition aspects and transitioning them from, being, one kind of athlete to a different kind of athlete, and what the nutritional change is going to look like for those horses, and like training issues, the list goes on. We published Off-Track Thoroughbred magazine for 7 years, and are continuing to work with those publishers to produce digital content going forward. But the entire archive of 7 years worth of collaboration and recurring columns from that magazine, in addition to other topics, is free and accessible in our education library.
So earlier this week, Caitlin Christopherson, my co-host on the Amplify Horse Racing podcast, and I actually had Joy Orr and Kristen Kovach-Bentley on from Retired Racehorse Radio to do a collaborative podcast episode. So this is definitely a big, RRP/aftercare week for Amplify, kind of by accident, but it was a good coincidence. And one of the things that we talked about, all of us having had experience with retraining our own off-the-track thoroughbreds, is what a journey and what a learning curve it can be, especially when, it's your first time taking on a horse coming off the track and taking them through that transition process. And one of the analogies we sort of talked about is, it's a little like, as a human, I guess one of the best comparisons I could have is you've gone to college for one thing, you have your degree in a certain subject, and then you retire from that career and you realize you have to go back to school for something completely different. So those horses are having to relearn a lot of things that, they were doing correctly and perfectly well as a racehorse, but it's a lot different once they become a sport horse and transition into that new career. So it's awesome to see that you guys share all of these resources. And I think a question that a lot of people might have is, and you've maybe kind of answered this with the education piece, like how does somebody start? Like, how do you start learning about retraining an off-the-track thoroughbred if this is something that you're just starting to consider?
Yeah, I mean, I think I touched on my experience as a working student a little bit at the beginning, and I think there's no replacement for hands-on learning. Ask around your community and see who is well known, who has a well-established reputation for being, particularly, in the reseller community, people that are putting on, 60, 90 days, a couple of first horse shows, the ones that are keeping the horses and developing them for a little bit longer, and see if you can find somebody like that you can attach yourself to and make yourself indispensable to. There's certainly plenty of information out there within our own website. Retired Racehorse Radio, like you mentioned. We're also involved with the Ride IQ app, which is a great app that's been developed over the last couple of years to have recordings of riding lessons available in a kind of podcast format, so that you can download them and listen to them like at will, like while you're riding. And
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I'm writing
this on our website too. And we have a partnership with them focusing on lessons specifically for off-track thoroughbreds. Aubrey Graham, who is one of our kind of Thoroughbred Makeover veterans, is one of the trainers that kind of helps produce content for that. And I really enjoy listening to her because she has a background in higher ed too. So she's a teacher of, in all the ways that you could be a teacher, literally and figuratively. So there's resources like that, which I think are really helpful and valuable, but truly when it comes to riding and working with horses, there's no replacement for, getting in the barn and getting in the tack and getting used to working with them.
I think this is a good spot for me to put another shout out. If you're watching this live right now, which I see we have quite a few people who are live, please do ask questions and leave comments anywhere that you're watching from right now. If you just comment on this video within the social media comments, we can bring that question up on screen. and we can address it. We actually did have our friend Susan from the David Cassidy Memorial Legacy Group say thank you, RRP, for what you're doing. And she also said that she shared this episode. So that is awesome to see. But as you guys can all see out there, we can bring that right up on screen and talk through your questions. If you're watching the recording of this episode on YouTube or on any other platform, we continue to monitor comments. So you can still reach out to us either directly at info@amplifyhorseracing.org, and we'll work on sharing your question with Kirsten or getting it sent, getting you pointed in the right direction, or we'll try to answer that right in the comments. So this is a really good opportunity to engage. While you're all thinking about your questions that you're going to send in, a question that we get a lot through Amplify is, what types of careers are there within the world of thoroughbred aftercare? Like, is this a space where you could pursue having a job if you're a young person out there who's really intrigued by this topic?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a bit of a niche industry. But I kind of always draw the comparison of my own mother going to career day. She was a CPA, and she would go to these kind of public school career days and, ask people like, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And they're like, well, I want to play professional football or something like that. And she's like, well, did you know that professional football, like associations, like they need accountants and they need CPAs and controllers and that sort of thing. And so it was kind of always her way of being like, even you could go and work for an aftercare facility, or you could, develop a business as a reseller, which are the kind of probably the forefront of what people think of. But aftercare organizations are just like any other business. And so there are lines of work that are applicable across all industries that aftercare still needs as well. The organizations, particularly the nonprofit facilities, don't necessarily have a lot of budget for large staffs. The RRP is a little bit different because we are not taking care of horses, and our mandate is a bit different than other aftercare organizations. And so we do have communications and development and program managers and all of those sorts of things that are pretty traditional within the nonprofit industry in general. But certainly there are going to be needs for financial professionals. There's going to be needs for graphic designers and marketing professionals. Regardless of whether or not these organizations are set up as nonprofits or as individual or for-profit entities, if you're doing it well and you're doing it correctly, you're going to need all of those services, and you're not realistic in thinking that you're going to be able to accomplish that all on your own, particularly if you have horses to take care of, as we all know. So insurance agents and, the list goes on. So, granted, it is a smaller industry, but there are certainly, I've seen even local to myself, people who specialize in just kind of business services focused on equine related businesses. So certainly if you are looking at a route where you want to be offering, a business service to the aftercare industry, there's certainly a need for people that have a bit of specialization and understanding and kind of what's involved in running horse businesses and the implications of that when it comes to accounting and tax preparation and all of that sort of thing. So it's very hard, I found, to go to people that are in those particular lines of work and don't have any awareness or understanding of horse industries. And, maybe not so specifically aftercare in particular, but it's really hard to say, I need help putting together an ad for this. And you have to give that person a brief primer on aftercare in the United States and explain all of this additional context for them so that the ad makes sense.
Or even finding and sourcing photos. We just talked about creating a good horse listing, having an appropriate confirmation photo, how you're depicting a horse in an ad.
Yep.
It's something that we thought about when we were looking for the company, the insurance company, to work with Amplify from the beginning. We found somebody who had worked with a previous equine education focused nonprofit. So there is a lot of opportunity in those spaces.
Yeah. Like, how many times have we seen like an editorial spread in Vogue or something that used horses, and it was so evident that like there was not a horse person on set because the bridle's on like upside down or something like that. It could have been avoided had you just engaged a horse person.
That is so funny. That's very, very true. But, prior to pursuing a career, a good way of gaining experience is becoming a volunteer. And I saw that RRP also has volunteer opportunities on your website. So how does somebody pursue becoming a volunteer for the Retired Racehorse Project?
Yeah. For us, obviously the big one is always the Thoroughbred Makeover. It's a massive event. And we need many, many, many bodies to pull it off well and efficiently. So you can always sign up and, for just general volunteerism notifications throughout the year. And as we get the schedule sorted out, the volunteer section of our website flips over to being like an actual shift sign up that'll show you like all of the schedule, the shifts that are available, the area of the competition that you're involved in. And, I think anybody that's ever tried to recruit volunteers for horse shows will always say like, there's a job for everyone. You don't have to have lots of horse experience. And that is true. If you can run a calculator or run a cashier or drive a golf cart or water plants, like those are all things. We do have occasional need for volunteers remotely throughout the year if we have like a data entry project or something like that. But again, we're a little bit unique in that we don't have horses in stalls that need to be mucked or, rehab cases that need to be hand walked or anything like that. So usually if we need help like at the makeover, or we need somebody to like come stuff some envelopes at the office or something like that. So
all good networking opportunities. If you volunteer at the makeover, it's a great avenue to meet people. It's a good excuse to go to Lexington, Kentucky. Yep. I mean, come on, who needs an excuse to do that?
Go see Keeneland with a niece and get some
breakfast. Yep, exactly. Amplify will continue doing our annual thing of hosting coffee and donuts for RRP participants and supporters to watch morning training and learn more about the racehorse side of things, the pre-aftercare.
Yeah.
And anybody who wants to learn more about the Retired Racehorse can visit therrp.org. And Kirsten, can you tell us where they can find you guys on social media?
Pretty much Retired Racehorse Project, on Facebook, on Instagram. I believe our Twitter or X handle is RRP_TB Makeover. And I might have gotten that wrong, and my communications manager is like slapping me upside the head. But and we're on TikTok as well. So TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, find us. We're there. And if you have any questions for me, I'm kgreen@therrp.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been such a good conversation. I learned a lot. I'm going to dive further into exploring the RRP website. Yeah. So I'm better informed and can maybe pick up a horse of my own in the near future. But I hope you enjoyed your time in Kentucky. I know you were here recently, and now it looks like you're back in Maryland.
Yep, home sweet home.
Have a wonderful holiday season. Were there any last words that you want to leave us with before we sign off?
Have to mention the makeover. It's makeover season. So there, again, on our website is a great page called want to apply, which is a kind of great summary page of how to get started if you're interested in giving it a shot this year. So take a look at that. We have a webinar about applying, which we're running tomorrow evening, so you can ask live questions of Raina, our secretary. And yeah, get involved. We have a really great community and are happy to welcome more people. So thanks for having me.
Wow, that's very timely.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Very cool. So hopefully people will go and check that out and follow up for more information, resources. So Kirsten, thank you so much, and I will see you soon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, so much for joining today's Horse Racing Hangout. It is our final one of 2023, and it was a great episode to wrap things up on. Again, if you want to reach out to Amplify Horse Racing, you can contact us at info@amplifyhorseracing.org. Certainly follow up with Kirsten if you have other questions about the Retired Racehorse Project. And with that, I don't think I have any more announcements other than if you are someone who's interested in getting more involved in the thoroughbred industry and you feel like a mentorship program might be for you, Amplify's mentorship program for our application for our spring program session is going to be opening up in January of 2024, and we'll have more details about that soon. We hope to see you again on our next live stream or hear from you about our podcast or see you at an Amplify event. Have a wonderful rest of your year.